we're going to talk about AI and the implications of AI, your preparedness for AI, what's happening in the industry for AI, and also where we are excited as an organization and how we talk to our customers about how prepared we are to bring AI to them. So joining me on this season as well as on this podcast today is Ankit Recharya, Head of Engineering, Voiro. Welcome, Ankit. We attended the AdCP webinar. It was okay. I thought it was going to be something amazing. And I'm sad that I'm not more impressed. I'm sure that we should be more impressed. But this is a start. We are mainly on the direct IO side. So this is also from a more programmatic side. My question here is, who's AdCP for?
So when we make protocols, that is done to standardize certain things. For example, when we saw USB-C coming in, right? Initially, Apple was reluctant to move to USB-C, right? But when we saw that all the providers of mobile phones, be it Samsung, be it OnePlus, all of them were shifting to USB-C, Apple finally did it.
For 2024, around June, we released AI Analyst. And we went on a road show. We went to one of our customers. We showed them this ChatGPT-esque kind of framework and said, ask it questions on your data, and it's based on your permissions. And you can ask any questions that you want on your data. And there were crickets. I met somebody from the industry. I was telling you about this. And even he was like, oh, yeah. We also tried to do our own GPT and it failed because nobody knew what questions to ask.
With AI, the speed at which things are changing, it is insane.
I'm sure that every organization has this. And so that is the positive aspect of AI, where you are able to leave a legacy of great talent within your organizational footprint there, and it learns on the back of it. But cautionary tale is that you are only as good as you are, which is you need to make sure that you're looking under the hood and understanding where you want to start, where is the cleanest place for you to start, and where the effort versus impact is something which actually pays off. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 8, season 7 of the Voiro podcast. As we barrel towards the end of this year, we've seen a ton of consolidation, a ton of acquisitions, a lot of news that's occupied our airwaves, and we've been having a lot of conversations internally at Voiro. Every day at 9:30, I have a stand-up of sorts where my immediate team comes together and we talk about everything under the sun. Sometimes we drag our feet to it, sometimes we come excited to it, sometimes it gets operational. But a lot of times we share what's happening in the industry. So we thought we'll bring some of the stuff that we've been discussing over the last maybe 6 to 8 months to this podcast just to have the start of the wrap of the year, so to speak. And no surprises in what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about AI and the implications of AI, your preparedness for AI, what's happening in the industry for AI, and also where we are excited as an organization and how we talk to our customers about how prepared we are to bring AI to them, right? So joining me on this season as well as on this podcast today is Ankit Recharya, Head of Engineering, Voiro. Welcome, Ankit.
Hi. Thanks, Kavita, for inviting me.
Yes, you're most welcome. I have dragged Ankit to office today because I was like, I need to have this in person so that we can have a open-ended coffee and conversation. I'm the only one having coffee. But anyway, all right. So across continents, right, we have seen acquisitions and mergers take place. Most recently that was approved was Skydance and Paramount, where David Ellison has picked up Paramount, and it's a legacy studio organization that is being picked up by a tech mogul, and they're expecting big things out of it. Closer to home, we've seen consolidation as well as some level of equilibrium with the JioStar acquisition. There were 3 different companies: JioSports, Hotstar, as well as JioCinema, which was originally Voot, belonging to Viacom18. All of 3 companies kind of merging into one. We saw about 6 to 8 months of people hanging on to that company. And now we see a lot of the stalwarts in that organization having branched off to head out other companies within the region as well as within the country, right? India seemed to quieten down, right? JioStar in India, they are kind of back to work, nose to the grindstone kind of situation. We're hearing murmurs all over the place. Also on the back of it, with the real money gaming ban in India, advertising is formed a new Philip in the country, and people are scrambling to figure out how would they make money out of regular advertising. More so because from a policy perspective, a lot of the brand safety guidelines disallowed them from being part of regular run-of-the-mill programmatic networks. So when the couple of questions that were asked over the last year, right? One is, do you have a way to understand how to figure out how companies prepared to take on AI, right? The second is, when I went to IBC, right, and when we talked to a lot of the broadcast guys, and then when you also kind of double click back into stuff that Satya Nadella is saying about AI on an industry level and so on and so forth, fundamentally there are very large industries that are not yet on the cloud, right? They are still working off servers, on their floors, and it's stuff that they're opening up on their desktops and using for various very legitimate reasons, right? And here we are trying to launch agents and so on and so forth. And so I want to touch upon that topic a little bit about should the focus just be on move them to the cloud, right? The second thing is, we attended the AdCP video, what's it called, a webinar. It was okay. I mean, it was not, I thought it was going to be something amazing, right? And I'm sad that I'm not more impressed. I'm sure that we should be more impressed, right? But this is a start. We are mainly on the direct IO side. So this is also from a more programmatic side. My question here is, who's AdCP for? Is it again one of the larger protocols that everybody has to follow in terms of getting in line so that demand can get to you faster and more appropriately? Like we had header bidding, that was pre-bid, then we had ads.txt, then we have now your AdCP, right? I want to sort of go back to the time that we wanted to do our own GPT, and we launched what was known as Voiro Genie. We were so excited about it, and what happened there. All right, so tell me about what you thought about the AdCP webinar, and where do you think our industry is going from a media and buying perspective that you believe is table stakes, where you think this is regular and okay, whatever, and where you think, yes, this is something that we need to do and you're sitting up and taking notice?
When I attended the webinar, right, I saw that AdCP is just like a protocol. So, for example, few months back, we saw that there is something called MCP, right? Where what people are trying to do is that now a lot of LLMs are coming into the picture.
Yeah.
Now what happens is that when you have scattered LLMs, right, it becomes very difficult for platforms like Voiro or publishers or media organizations to do something that is common to all other systems, right?
Yeah.
So when you make protocols, that is done to standardize certain things.
Right.
For example, when we saw USB-C coming in, right?
Yeah.
So initially, Apple was reluctant to move to USB-C, right? But when we saw that all the providers of mobile phones, be it Samsung, be it OnePlus, all of them were shifting to USB-C, Apple finally did it.
Yeah.
Now, what changed with that is that if I, as a user, if I was carrying one iPhone and one Samsung, I had to carry two chargers, right?
Yeah.
It made one for me.
Yeah.
And then we saw MacBook also using the same USB-C port, right? So what did it simplify is that instead of carrying three chargers, I'm carrying only one, correct? So these protocols...
For the reason of charging. For
Exactly.
the purpose of charging.
So it is like that for me, it reduced for me to organize three chargers for me, little bit of weight for me, but it simplified my life to a certain point, right?
Correct.
When you make these protocols, the idea is that can we kind of simplify the life of these platforms who wants to integrate to many other third-party platforms who exist in the same ecosystem, but it is tough if you try to do individually. For example, let's say that in our case, we integrate with Google Ad Manager, we integrate with NVIDIA, we integrate with Criteo. So when we do this right, one route that you can take is that you can create each integration separate. Or you can create a centralized system and then make sure that only the systems which are interacting to the system are separate, but the centralized system is making sure that the information that is received from the user and passed on to the other systems, this is common, right? So it simplifies the life of these systems. it simplifies the maintainability of the systems. At CP, they are trying to do something of that sort, wherein when MCP came up, they were trying to simplify and standardize the LLMs, wherein you can multiple LLMs can follow the same structure, which means that if you are talking to Claude, it will give you similar output. When you ask a question, there's a response that is parsed and sent to the systems to parse and send back the response, right? So that intermediate layer is where they were standardizing things so that multiple LLMs will follow the same structure.
Fair.
Now, Ad CP is trying to do the same thing. That let's say, if you are trying to integrate to Google Ad Manager, you're trying to integrate to Freewheel, or you're trying to integrate to Criteo. What happens today is that everybody will have their different APIs.
Yep.
But user is asking the same question, correct? Which means that the way user is asking the question is not changing, but the intermediate systems are changing. Hence, when we do Ad CP, they are trying to standardize this protocol, saying that, okay, now if you ask that, create a media plan for me, right? What it will do is that it will give you same structure, whether you are in-house using Claude, or using some cloud provider, or any other third-party system. So this is where they're trying to centralize stuff. Now, if we talk about Voiro, right? I remember that we built the foundation that way. So I remember that around 8 to 9 years, when we started Voiro and this platform, we were completely structured that way, which means that we have multiple systems, let's say Criteo, Freewheel, Ad Manager, and Voiro is in the middle. Our OMS is built such that it can parse information from all these platforms and inject it into our OMS. That is how we are able to give, let's say, centralized view of revenue, so much reporting that we do
We
for
used to call it in those days, we used to call it a translator.
translator. Exactly.
Right. So a translator is like a protocol.
Exactly.
And where, from our perspective, and I was talking to somebody yesterday about how the entire campaign creation is set up over here, where under a campaign, you could have several goals, and each of those goals could be mapped to a different ad server,
Yep.
right? So you could have a campaign that has been booked, but it pushes metadata as well as creatives, as well as booking data, and pulls back delivery data from the subset that is mapped to an ad server. And you can actually in the configurations map it back and forth, saying that these kinds of goals for video ads will go only towards
Yeah.
InVidi or whatever, Freewheel or whatever else, and these are retail ads, and these are PLA, and so they will go only to Criteo and Roundel or whatever else that you have, right? So this translator has always existed in concept.
Yeah.
What is the incremental aspect of this that makes it a protocol now? Is it that this translator earlier was like how I made my own USB port that was fit for my phone that I believe needs to work, and today this protocol has taken everything that's there in the market and said that here is a framework that we all have to adopt?
So I'll tell you the basic difference that exists is in the approach. For example, what Voiro is doing is exactly that these translators are white labeled for Voiro.
Fair.
Which means that wherever Voiro goes, it goes along with it.
Yeah.
But if you talk about Ad CP, they are trying to make it public.
Right.
Which
I can
means-
see there's a GitHub repository called Ad Context Protocol,
Yes.
Ad CP,
Yeah.
which is public,
Yeah.
right? There are about 107 branches right now. It's very, very recent. They just set it up October 15th or something,
Yeah.
right? It defines itself as Ad CP revolutionizes advertising automation by providing a single AI-powered protocol that works across all major advertising platforms. What is the AI-powered protocol? So I've understood the translating aspect of it. So AI-powered is what? So an LLM is also buying into this protocol, and those LLMs are also participating in this protocol? Is that what it is?
No. So what they mean, it's a more technical term where what they're trying to do is that, like I was saying, that Voiro have our translators, right?
Yeah.
If you make this public, and now what happens is that every, let's say AI LLMs, if they stick to this protocol, then industry-wise, let's say for the entire media industry, this becomes available. Where now if you use Claude, you use AWS Bedrock, whatever LLM you use, when you ask a question, or let's say you will say that, create a campaign for me on Freewheel, right? Or create a campaign for me on Google Ad Manager. Now what this has to do is that the LLM have to pass this information, send it to the correct tag server, correct?
Right.
Which means that internally it will use the same translator, but the AI part means that today in Voiro, let's say, when you go and click on a button, that is what is asking that, I need to push this campaign to Google Ad Manager on this. So the action is taken by the user by going to filling some form and, going and taking some actions. When we say AI, now this is being transformed into a chatbot, or let's say simple text box where you go and say that, okay, create this campaign for me, for this advertiser, for this many budget, this much of quantity, for these many days. And when the campaign gets created, you are saying that, okay, can you please push it to the relevant ad servers? So when you create different types of campaign, which is, let's say, CTV, or like if it is a retail, then it will go to Criteo.
Sure.
So then it should understand and it should push it to the right ad server, correct? So the translation is where this comes into the picture. But after that, the layer remains the same. It will go to the same translator, which will parse the information, which will map the information and send it to the right ad server. It just, you can consider this as a layer on top of what we have today.
Fair.
Right? What we did with
where is the AI part? Which is the LLM? So when let me explain my confusion. Right. I'm reading an article by Shelly Palmer, and she basically says who's behind this. It's a consortium that's come together, as are all protocols in the ads world and anywhere else. There are a bunch of people who are leading this. The founders include Yahoo, Optable, Pubmatic, Scope3, Swivel, Triton Digital. Right? Launch members include Magnite, Cargo, Raptive, LG Ad Studio as Ad Solutions, The Weather Company, AccuWeather, Butler /Till, Classify, Samba TV, and others. The governance is described as a neutral working group, which means that everybody is working for the greater good of this protocol. I don't see any LLM here. Where is the AI?
Yeah, so you're right. So that's what I'm trying to say, that when we did MCP, right?
Yeah.
Even that did not solve the actual AI problem.
Yeah.
They have just given you a protocol that if you implement and if you follow this, if you go to multi-agent architecture where you will use multiple LLMs, then it can all follow the same protocol. It's just a protocol. It's not doing anything for the AI. That still have to be done by you. It is the decisions are still to be taken by you. It's just that this is available. You implement the systems, take this and make sure that this parses back and connects the dots.
So go back to your USB example. Where does AI fit into this? So is AI the manufacturer of the USB cable? Where does AI fit into this example right now? So Apple got onto the bandwagon of USB-C, correct? People said that USB-C is far more beneficial because of the fact that maybe Android guys were using it and Apple finally said, forget it, I'll just do it myself and just bite the bullet, right? Now, in this model context protocol, where you are saying that you are telling everybody, you are basically, there is some study that says that USB-C is most used. So the economy of scale for Apple at this point in time to be able to get manufacturers to be able to make USB-C type chargers far more economical, because the whole world has moved there and your chargers are really unnecessarily expensive and too small to make now or whatever, right? And so Apple has gone and done this. So there is some study that's shown them, and there's some layer that they have got on. Again, I know I'm being a little difficult here. This protocol, right? I expected, say, Claude or I don't know, whichever other LLM that current, because they use Claude in the entire presentation. I'm failing to understand, where is the AI part of it? Is it that all AIs will understand it?
No. So let's take an example of Voiro Genie, right? When we implemented Genie, you pick up whatever LLM you are picking, and when you build an agent, you have to train the agent that, okay, give me the response in this format.
Sure.
Take the inputs in this format. Yeah. Your role is this, right? So for Genie, let's say we said that you are a revenue analyst and you have to give XYZ answers. This is your scope.
You write up a JD.
Exactly. Right. So similarly, with LLMs, Claude is not going to understand this.
Yes.
You are going to train Claude.
So I'm going to set up an JD on Claude.
Yes.
Say that you are a media buying agent.
Yes.
Where does MCP come into this?
MCP again is at the same place, that it's a protocol. Now I took up, let's say, LLM Claude, right? And I trained LLM to say that, okay, this is a protocol in which I want you to give the responses. So let's say when you ask a question,
Wait. I have a question. Sorry to interrupt. Right. So in my JDs, like there was the time, like today in most of our resumes that we receive, right? There used to be a time where people used to put down their proficiencies and skill sets in various types of technology,
Yes.
right? For non-technical people, there was like Microsoft Office, Excel, whatever else. For technical people, is whatever software language they were proficient in. So is this AdCP a proficiency for the JD of that agent?
to an extent,
Okay.
But see, like I said, that it's a protocol.
Okay.
Unless you take this, train the LLM to behave in this way, it is not. So it's disconnected. You have to connect it together. It's just that it, like USB-C, it will be publicly available.
Right.
It will be industrially accepted. Maybe it is just a starting point. But if it is accepted industry-wide, then it's something that people will have confidence on. And then you may have some pre-trained models already available for you. So Claude maybe will not do this, but let's say there are other companies who are creating platforms from where you can create agents, right? They may take this and make sure that they pre-train these models so that you don't have to do it, right?
Okay.
It is that way.
So then universities will take the syllabus
Exactly.
and make these things ready.
Exactly.
All right. These analogies. Yeah. Okay. So now you attended this AdCP thing, right? Okay, it's an experiment. Who do you think is benefiting? Is it benefiting the publishers or is it benefiting the buyers?
Actually, it will benefit both. I'll tell you how. Let's take an example of Voido, right? Today, when people buy our platform, both the parties win here. Why? Because we solve a lot of problems, right? And how are you solving these problems? By making sure that we are able to connect it to so many platforms. We are able to give information like, on clicks, right? We are processing huge amount of data and still making sure that within seconds we are able to process and give the information back to the customer, right? Now, where does this go? The information is not only consumed by the publisher. Publisher is a daily user, but who's their customer? It's the advertiser, right? So buyer is anyways getting this information back to them, correct? Now, why do we exist? To fast track this entire process, correct?
Okay.
So these kind of protocols and platforms, what they do is that the kind of work we had to do when we started the company, by making sure that we centralize everything together, we understand each of these things together, like so well that we are able to architect it in the right way, it solves those complexities for us, right?
Right.
But still, the translators, the understanding, the expertise of that ad server still doesn't go away.
Yeah.
It remains, but it at least solves that wrapper of AI that is coming in, gives us the right information, so then we don't have to invest in this part. That's the entire idea.
So going back to our Genie, right? I have Genie vibes from this entire AdCP, and I don't want to have these vibes, but I'm having these vibes. So mid of last year, right? 2020, which year are we in? 2025, 2024, right? June, around June, we released our AI analyst, and we went on a road show. We went to one of our customers. We showed them like this ChatGPT-esque kind of framework and said, ask it questions on your data, and it's like based on your permissions, and you can ask any questions that you want on your data. And there were crickets for months, and we kept trying to get people to use it. They would use it for 1 or 2 questions, and they were like, yeah, okay, it's fine. And then, they would go back to their dashboards, their reports, and whatever else. And I was really upset about it for a really long time. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that, people haven't taken to it. Maybe it's an India thing. Maybe it's that, we have so many people and everybody's doing their work and so really don't want to ask any questions. They want to actually just go to the data themselves or ask people for the data, as in talk to a human being. Until I met somebody from the industry. I was telling you about this. And even he was like, oh, yeah, we also tried to do our own GPT and it failed because nobody knew what questions to ask.
Yes.
Why do you think why do you think that was the case in your mind? Like, I know that we were very excited. We decided we would start on the analyst part because we were getting overwhelmed with the number of requests for reports, right? So we said, let's give them a way to ask for this information in a question answer format, give them natural language based information. Our data is organized, rapid with permissions, and make sure that the information is going back to the right person in the right amount, in the right way, right? At the right time, based on the questions. Why do you think it didn't work?
See, I'll answer this simply like this, that if you think about yourself, right, when AI got dropped and it was made accessible to all of us, right, within months, the way we were working just completely changed.
Yes.
Correct? So if you think about when we released something in June, when did we plan? We planned maybe 6 months, 7 months back, right? With AI, the speed at which things are changing, it is insane, right? So initially, when AI was not there, it used to work on the similar track, but the time taken was higher. So for example, if I'm thinking of an idea today, I had some time to, let's say, convert it into a product, launch it into the market, wait, market it, see the response and tweak things and then go back to the customer. Right?
Yeah. To your point, I just read a line today and I don't know where I read it from. It said, product market fit is no longer fixed.
Exactly.
It is dynamic. It's a moving target. It has always been, in my opinion, right? But more so today with the influence of AI and the noise and the excitement that it's creating, and everybody's in this age of AI and experimentation. Okay, go on.
No, so
Why did we fail? Why do you think it didn't take off?
So yeah, like I was saying that, when you start such kind of things, right, you have to be very quick, that you cannot take too much time. And, by the time we came up with our, product, people actually started thinking about actions, that why should I think, right?
Yeah.
Isn't AI doing that for me?
So what is that called in the AI world? What is an action called?
So
is it an agent to agent thing, or is it agentic, or?
see, that's again the tech that you pick up.
Right.
But from a customer mindset, it's more about that now you don't want to do your regular mundane work, right?
Correct.
So let's say if, who was it built for? It was for somebody who is higher up in the org and, did not...
It is Genie, right?
Genie.
Yeah.
So let's say that if you are higher up in the org and you cannot spend too much time, going through Excel sheets, right? What used to happen earlier was this, that you will have a team who will consume that data. They will convert it into something that is understood to you or that is relevant to you. Correct? Now with AI coming in, that is what we try to solve. That you ask that what is my business, what is my target versus booked right now. It'll give you that information. But by the time we reached there, the questions itself changed, right? The way user was using the product itself changed.
Correct.
That's where I felt that we failed.
Yeah.
And if we were, let's say, quick enough that if the span was shorter, where we could have thought of something, we would have released it within, let's say, few weeks, understood the user mindset and again bounced back at it.
Right.
I think it would have been a success. But
So being at it constantly. So this has plagued us a lot, right? As an organization where, you want to be sexier than you are. We are a workflow automation platform. We're organizing and making data accessible and clean and streamlined. We are making sure that handoffs between various intermediate, teams are streamlined, and there's a governance layer on top of it. The outcome of it is some beautiful, clean, accessible information for you to be able to learn on, right? Now, this is us. We were born 12 years ago. We were born in the cloud. Our customers have always been people who are digital natives. We have had very few legacy customers, and even in the legacy customer space, we've probably kind of woven our way in and out of the legacy spaces, right? We have not replaced any legacy systems.
Yep.
Nobody's going to build up new versions of legacy systems because people are not going to build for the past. And when I say legacy, I'm using it as a loose, a shortcut term for broadcast, right? Because broadcast is not dead. Fine, it's declining, but it's still large. It's still a large wheel that's turning, and it'll take some time to slow down, but it'll never, I believe, it will never go away. Radio's still around, man, in whatever shape or form, right? It's still around. So, when you think about AI in this concept, and this is what we, at the top of the show, I was saying that what is required right now, and you spoke about the fact that you need to be nimble, fast, and you need to be able to change and turn around things fast. But that's in the case of the fact that everything's accessible to, everything's on the cloud, everything is organized, your rails are in place, your data is clean, you're not making it train on dirty data or incorrect data. Now you think about large broadcasters, large manufacturing firms, right, who have places that probably are, have a very slow internet speed, or they have higher cable subscribers. And yes, the companies are trying to float them away and say that I'm making this company into a separate company altogether, like Warner Brothers did, right? They just bundled up all the old stuff and put it on a flotilla and said, bye, you're going to be another company now.
Yep.
Do what you want to do. But in the same line, there is this fast and slow business at the same time, right? You have to take everything onto the cloud.
Yes.
That's number one. When do you take them onto the cloud? When you do take them onto the cloud, then you start applying AI to it. Correct?
Yeah.
So, if you were to answer the question today for any organization who's broadcast first, right? How would you look at understanding how AI ready you are? Because there are some things you have to ignore. Like when we also decided to go ahead with building an AI analyst, we examined the areas in which we decided that, okay, this could use some AI.
Yep.
The rest of it could be automation or whatever else, but this is AI and this is where we could actually bring it to the fore. And we decided that reports and data and all of that would be where we are. I still think that's a good bet for us, but we need to figure out how do we implement it? Like, do we start taking action on that data? Do we start suggesting actions and let a user approve the action and then learn on the efficacy and the efficiency of that action and the results of that action to start making it more and more automated? So that's one way to go from it. But if you're to think about it, right? If you are a broadcaster today or a big broadcaster comes to us and says, hey man, how do I figure in record time? I don't want to give you a consulting deal for like 12 months. What would you look at in terms of a framework to tell them where they should be starting in terms of AI? AI has to begin. What would you do?
Honestly, like it's like, earlier when I used to build these products, there used to be a questionnaire.
Yeah.
Right? That, okay, like if I have to build this, what is your use case? What is your top 5, maybe like proper observation that you need from such systems and all that, right? It is still, I think it will still stick to that.
Yeah.
But, where you
But people are afraid to accept that truth.
Yes.
The other day, somebody came up to us and asked us, do you have a tool to be able to diagnose your AI readiness? Like when you think, like if you could think it, probably you can do it. But by the time you build it, the context has changed.
Yes.
Correct?
But think about it this way, that I've been talking to a lot of people in my network also and my peers. And what I've understood is that from the top, people are dropping these bombs, okay? For example, I've been talking to tech leaders and they have been told that, the code review that you are doing in 2 days has to be done in a few hours now, right?
Right.
So when you drop such bombs, people don't know what to do.
Hey, but you've been successful with Voiro and the engineering teams, right?
Yes.
You've implemented AI and we literally generated 2 full engineers worth of work in a sprint.
Yes.
Just using AI.
Yes.
Right? Was that because we were bloody inefficient or was it because AI was actually used well?
No, I think if you think about it, I think it was whenever you build or utilize such systems, right, the clarity of thought is very important. And I think I was very clear. And I think one of the reason I got that clarity was also due to this research of building Genie, understanding our customers, understanding our own problems. I think one advantage that I always had being in Voiro was that I'm here from 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And I know all the nitty-gritties of the system.
Right.
I know what are the challenges. I know where we can improve. That had that clarity in me that, okay, if I have to use AI, I don't have to like really build a system. I don't have to build somebody who can code for me, right? The reality is this, that when you build enterprise applications, AI will do some maintenance of some parts of it, maybe generate some code for me. But still, the reason why enterprise kind of companies exist is the way they are, which is the accuracy, the trust that they carry with them. And AI is very people use it very loosely as well. People use it everywhere. But if you think about it, I was very clear that it cannot do everything for me, right? So I figured out 3 to 4 places where I wanted to implement some tech systems. I actually tried to use it there. For example, if earlier what we were doing is that we used to be very fast. I remember that when I spoke to some of the services companies, and if you try to build a product, they may give you a rough estimate of 6 weeks or 7 weeks, right? We were doing it in like 1 week, 2 weeks, right? We were that quick. Now, with that speed, what happens is that sometimes you have to let go of some of our engineering processes, something that matters to you most, maybe in the longer term, but it does, right? That is where I started utilizing it. And I started thinking that, okay, if you think about it, if I take up a sprint and let's say I have X amount of engineers, they can only write Y amount of code. That is where I started replacing it with AI, saying that, okay, if I have to write test cases, if I have to write unit test cases, right, which was consuming, let's say, 1 day for an engineer, it just went away, right? The AI was doing it for me. So what is the job of the engineer? The actual job for them is not writing code. They are already programmers. They can, when I used to code, I used to sometimes write 3,000, 4,000 lines of code in a day. So which means if I was that good while writing, If I'm thinking correctly, if I know what I want, then I'll get what I as the output.
Right. More than what you were doing earlier.
Exactly. So AI is as good as you are.
Right.
It is not thinking out of the box. It is just, kind of accumulating stuff from various sources
Right.
and giving you your output basis what you ask there.
Fair enough. So on that point of AI being as good as you are, and now you take it at an enterprise level, right? And coming back to my question on legacy broadcaster who has come to you to say that, all right, man, I need to bring in AI, right? Where do you figure how to place AI? And if you look at the foundations across the ad monetization workflow that, Voiro's in at, which is pretty much the playbook of any large scale ad monetization organization, right? So you have plan to book automation, you have supply management, you have order execution, you have revenue reconciliation, you have monitoring and reporting, and you have governance. We decided to start off in number 5, which is monitoring and reporting, where we decided to plug in Genie and say that let's have Genie here. Of course, we said now we've learned that it should not be a user prompted action. It should be an automated insight with a user prompted approval of a so what or an action that it can take. Hey, you're pacing low on these campaigns. Do you want to shift out your budgets to ABC to ensure that you're making the minimum guarantee to your brand? This is what you need to do. Here are the outcomes. Approve or not, right? So if it approves, it goes and makes the action for you, which is exactly what you're saying in terms of it's as good as you are.
Yeah.
What would your advice to a broadcaster be saying that, look, what do you need? Like, where do you need to introspect in terms of where would you want AI? Obviously, you can't do an entire sweep. It's not possible. It's better that you start a new company, which is what people did with the OTT space. But if you are already you're a moving train, what would you do?
It again goes back to the basic concept of, when you build products, you first find out what is your biggest pain point or what is that you want to benefit out of this.
Right.
Let me take an example of, let's say, our industry, right? If any company is making, let's say, X amount of money in a year, and what would really please them is that if I can do twice of this, 3x of this, 5x of this, right? Which means that if I can generate more demand or if I can do more bookings, so if that salesperson who is making, let's say, 10 proposals in a day, if that guy can make 20 proposals in a day, right? At the same time, on the buying side, if there is a similar impact of AI, wherein you have a receiver on the other end, that's when the industry benefits.
So this commonality of giving and receiving is currently what AdCP is trying to do. Where as a demand side person, I'm able to spread my requirement out into the universe of suppliers, right? To say, give me back proposals I can look at.
Yeah.
And you have on the other side an agent who's able to receive this and say, all right, I have something for you from my side. Here's what I have.
Yeah.
Because today, even though when we talk about programmatic, the last mile is still very manual, correct?
Yeah.
I can send out a request for a proposal. My response to that proposal will be somebody who's a human being doing it to some extent, right?
Exactly.
I can submit a proposal and it's still a human being who's approving that proposal.
Yes.
But in the age of agent to agent, what we are trying to say is that you can be as good as you are.
Yes.
And in the most positive way of looking at this is that you're a great organization and you're supercharging yourself with AI.
Yes.
Because to your point where you're saying that I want to make sure that I'm able to generate 10 times more amount of RFPs and I want to be able to fulfill so many proposal requests.
Yeah.
I need somebody who's going to be doing exactly what I'm doing, but just more.
Yeah.
How is this different from automation?
It's not.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what it does for you. It does automation at scale. So for example, let's say that earlier when we were automating, even then, you had to click on some button.
Correct.
Can I click on that button 100 times in 1 second?
Right. But isn't this what robotic process automation was all about?
It was, but it was not for such kind of systems.
Fair.
And see, even in robotics, if you see the application of AI will still be there. Right. But what would it do? It would, maybe fast track the process of creating the robots, right? Or maybe like the accuracy or the number of experiments that they used to do, maybe that will scale up, right? So end of the day, if I see what AI is equivalent to speed, right? That if I was able to do 10 things in one day, I'll now do 100 things in one day, right? For all of these things that, we have been talking about, the technology, the foundation, the process already exists. Same thing is going to be utilized. What it is going to do is simplify things for you where you don't have to really do it, and a non-tech person can do some complex stuff that only tech people were able to do earlier. But it is just going to provide you scale, speed, right?
And with RPA and scale and speed, what you're trying to say is that if I do 100 proposals today, and I know that 50 actually won and they did well, I'm able to encompass the entire macro view of it. And then when I send out the next 100, they'll be based on that learning.
Exactly.
Instead of repeating the same 100 over and over again.
So this is I want to quote an example here of cumulative interest, right? That when you do maybe an FD, next year, the amount of interest you receive is on the amount that you had paid in the first year plus the interest you have received in that year, correct? So second year, you're actually receiving the interest on the first year's principal plus the interest you have received in the second year.
Right.
Similarly, when you use AI, best part about AI is that apart from scale and speed, that speed continuously increases by X amount of times just because it knows you better and better.
Sure.
Right?
But it all depends upon the principle.
Exactly.
If the principle is rotten or if it's small,
yes,
it's just going to be...
It can be very disruptive.
Yeah, it can be very disruptive.
So if I come back to the question that you had asked, right, because I think it's a very, very important question that how AI ready you are. I think it's first of all, you have to introspect, right? Do you really need AI? Because I think that people are also confusing the fact that, it's automation or it is AI, right? People are trying to put AI everywhere. My 2 cents on this is that when you first find out the use case, what do you really want to achieve? So let's say, like I was saying, that if it's a broadcaster and if they're using very outdated systems, right, all you can start with is a wrapper. Don't change your entire system, right? Build a wrapper, find out your problem. Let's say if the problem is booking, then just take that, build a product just for booking, and then you just connect these 2 products together. That's it. So you have not changed anything drastically in your ecosystem. You have introduced one new stuff or new product in your ecosystem, which is doing a lot of things for you. And when you see the application, you see the output, you keep moving ahead, you keep changing it, you keep interacting, you keep developing new products, and then maybe you transition your products that way. But you're not really you do something where you disrupt your entire business, and you are yourself worried that will it really work or not.
Correct. Also, people don't remain in their positions for long.
They don't.
Right.
I think that is another very important aspect, that because it trains itself, what happens is that however good I may be, because I have been training that if I leave the organization, it stays with the organization. So whoever is coming new, gets that benefit and then can do it on their...
Or I could sabotage it if I'm evil, right?
You can.
Yeah.
Yes. But I feel that, these questions are very important. I think that due to some incident that have happened very recently, people have started taking it little more seriously.
Yep.
Right? And the other thing that I have seen that people are worried about is cost.
Yes.
I was talking to one of our customers. They had spent lakhs of rupees just on some R&D, right? And I was like, we built Genie on, a fractional cost of that entire cost, right? So you have to be very careful of that as well. That when you decide, you have to put some limits. You have to make sure that those guardrails are there.
Yep.
When we built Voiro, governance, etc. used to be very important, right?
Yeah.
Similar structure is needed for stuff wherever people are applying AI, because it can be very disruptive to your cost, to your business, and you may spend your entire energy in just, fixing this, right? And one other point that I will want to add, when you make investment, right, you have a risk appetite, right? And you design your investment journey or framework basis that. So you have to do the same thing with AI also. You have to know that there are pros, there are cons, it may work, it may not work, right? The investment you make, it has to be in your risk appetite. As an organization, as a company, what do you want to do? You may or may not achieve. You have to have a plan A, you have to have a plan B. But this is very important, right? This is what I have at least learned by, bringing up...
Trial and error.
Yeah.
Last couple of things, right? Browser-based AI, browser-based agents. We were talking about it yesterday in office, and Abash was saying, on shopping site, you could actually, if you download an AI-based browser, it can take actions on your behalf. You can ask it to go find a shoe of a particular kind or whatever else. How far are B2B softwares that are available on a browser, right, away from just enabling these kinds of agents into the browser? Like today people are building agents, right? We are deploying an agent within a secure environment. Now, tomorrow, if I had to open up Voiro in Perplexity's browser, right, and I told Perplexity, make sure that you, create a campaign for me and whatever else, and it tries to learn and find out. Is that possible today? Can you do that?
Not today, but I think it is going to happen.
But why not today? Like if I open up Voiro in Perplexity's browser and
I'll tell you. So I was reading that,
I want to try this when I go back.
I was doing a quick comparison between Google Chrome and Perplexity because I've been hearing that they wanted to buy and all that.
Yeah.
What I realized is that what is very important to our customers, if you again go back to the same term of governance, right? It's not there. So if you read about it, again, it's built at speed, it's built at scale. They still don't know the governance that your product follows, right? You don't know where do you stop them. So unless for our kind of products or enterprise products, you go to a level where you can control these things, or that product can have controls on this. So for example, Voiro can go and configure that you can do only X, Y, Z, but you cannot do Y. And I'll tell you a very important example in our use case is that we have multiple orgs, we have multiple teams in our publishers ecosystem, and the data is very important that one team cannot see maybe other team's data, or somebody who is bottom of the org cannot see top of the org data, right? When you allow, let's say, such kind of tools to interact with you, you come at risk of, being able to expose this kind of information. So this is what I was reading, that even with Google Chrome and Perplexity, even though this is growing at scale and being loved, people have forgotten that, you may be at risk of your data, just getting breached, your credit card that, browser generally store. You forget about it.
Yeah.
In the excitement of getting what you are getting out of the browser, right?
Right.
So for enterprise products, I think, again, you have to be very diligent. You have to do your due diligence, understand that how that entire system works. Maybe I'm talking this way because I'm just too much into tech and I'm very careful.
No, we got to be careful, man.
Yeah.
This is like people's revenue information and also credit card information and whatnot.
Exactly.
And so, all our certifications and all the SOC stuff, etc., disallows it to be used on these browsers, right? It will not launch itself. So currently everybody's safe, but
on the other side, to your point, I feel that in the future, the way people are thinking of browsers, I don't think people had thought in the past, but now the way these companies like Perplexity are thinking of browsers, I think this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Where the platforms like ours, there will be an ecosystem created, either through, the extensions that we used to see on browsers or something, but there will be a way to bridge that gap and make sure that you're able to just take action just from a browser.
Yeah, because if you think about it, right, today I can actually engineer the browser to disallow certain things from a permissions capability perspective or a security perspective as an enterprise organization based on my security protocols.
Yes.
So in the same line, I can actually do this even for my agents and ability for actions to be taken, right? So, I mean, it's a long way to go, but if you're going to be on the cloud and if it's going to be browser based, I believe the browser also is going to hold this kind of power as well as this kind of security risk for you to be able to think about it, right? I think we've gone all over the place today, but I've had a very invigorating conversation with you. I was dying to have this conversation with somebody, and thank you for joining me today. From Voiro's perspective, we deeply believe in the concept of AI, and it is dramatically different from automation because automation is repetitive tasks being done without really learning. The future of agentic AI is that where you want to be as good as you are, and we believe that our customers are great at what they do, and all they have to do is make sure that they become amazing. And we've in the journey of AI, in the journey of Voiro, I have met some stellar AdOps people, right, who have influenced creation of amazing features for us because there was a meltdown at some point in time. There was why don't you have this, or why can't we build this? And we were like, of course we can build it. We never thought of it, right? And of course, those guys have gone on to become, big deals in their own, in their world. But I'm glad that we have some part of their legacy here. And I won't say it here, but I know certain features were born out of certain conflicts with certain AdOps heads, right? I literally can have like a placard said made by XYZ because of ABC. So I'm sure that every organization has this. And so that is the positive aspect of AI, where you are able to leave a legacy of great talent within your organization, a footprint there, and it learns on the back of it. But cautionary tale is that you are only as good as you are, which is you need to make sure that you're looking under the hood and understanding where you want to start, where is the cleanest place for you to start, and where the effort versus impact is something which actually pays off.
Exactly.
Right? From an ad operations, ad revenue management perspective, we believe that the operations playbook is dramatically different for organizations, right? Because there is a moat in the way they operate.
Yep.
There is the underlying aspect of it, which is similar, right? It is going to work in a particular manner. It has to go from order to cash, right? But how you do it, what you do, how you sell, etc., all become part of this workflow. So we are very, very prepared for this playbook to be implemented because we are across the fundamentals of the workflows, as is all of our competition, as is all of other OMS platforms, etc., where workflow is the bedrock of data management, right? Data cleanliness. And that is the starting point of anything automation, which leads to AI.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening today. Thank you, Ankit, for joining me today.
Thank
I
you.
had a great time. Thank you, Gautam. Thank you, Santosh. And thank you, Leena. And thank you, everybody, for listening to the Voyo podcast. Join us next time.